Okay, well, welcome everybody. Very excited to have you with us today for the first Business Climate Leaders All Hands meeting of 2020. So Happy New Year to everybody. We start on both exciting news in terms of all the things that we've accomplished in the past year, and also sad news in the passing of our founder, Marshall Saunders. So just want to put that out there in honor of him and in deep gratitude for what he created and what we are also very proud of, Business Climate Leaders, Climate Lobby, and all the work that we're able to do in kind of carrying his legacy forward. So it gives me great pleasure to have with us Geraldine Link, the Director of Public Policy for the NSAA, the National Ski Area Association, which is a trade group of resort owners and operators nationwide, represents over 90% of the ski or snowboarder visits in the United States. So if you ski or snowboard, then you are represented by Geraldine and the organization. So I don't know, Geraldine could maybe speak to this, the amount of money that the ski areas generate, but I know the outdoor industry is close to $1 trillion in the US. So an incredibly vibrant and vital part of our life, both the economy as well as our personal lives. Geraldine is a lawyer by training, has been with the NSAA for many years. She's a member, very importantly, of the Advisory Board of Business Climate Leaders. We're very proud of that, and has been a very early and active supporter of CCL, BCL, and carbon pricing, and has endorsed and supports the EICDA. So with that, I will turn it over to Geraldine, and she will kind of share her thoughts and with us, and then we'll have some time for question and answers with us, and then we'll jump into some BCL business and kind of share what we've done in the last year and what we're looking forward to in the coming year. And we'll just ask while Geraldine's talking, if you have questions that come to mind, put them in the chat, and we will organize that and ask them. So with that, Geraldine, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm really thrilled to be part of this, and I'm really excited about what lies ahead. And here we are in January, facing a new year, and I think the ski industry is optimistic about putting more work into climate change solutions and being part of something bigger in terms of bringing those solutions to life. And so I am really happy to talk to you guys today about what we're doing at NSAA. And I thought I would just do a couple of slides introducing what kind of work that we do, and then also branch out to the broader perspective of, if you're working with an association or with a certain industry, how do you try to get people on board with supporting a price on carbon? Like, what are the challenges with doing that, and what has worked for us in terms of doing that? So I hope to share that towards the end. So just to give you some background on our initiatives, we started on climate change advocacy actually back in the year 2000. We did a policy. We addressed climate change in that 2000 initiative that we started back then called Sustainable Slopes. We got real specific about climate change in particular in 2002. We did some partnerships with NRDC and Cliff Bar. We did all kinds of variations on Keep Winter Cool and outreach campaigns. And then in 2011, we decided that it was time for us to have a really formal program on reducing the carbon footprint of a ski area, and we call it the Climate Challenge. And it started in the 2011-12 season, and we've been rolling with it ever since. We have 48 resorts now. It varies. It goes up and down. Some of them actually graduate from the program because they meet their goals. But as you can see from the slide, it's a typical I would say, carbon mitigation reduction kind of program. So we have the resorts do an inventory, they target what their reduction should be. They have to take action annually to reduce their carbon footprint, and they have to do advocacy as part of the program. So that's built into the program, it's a requirement. And they report on all of those things back to NSAA, and then we publicly report those things in a public reporting platform through our website. We call it an annual report. And so we've put out a report every year since 2012. And the resorts who are part of it, I think they're pretty psyched to be a part of it. We always want to grow this program and add more resorts in, but we also realize that not everyone is going to be part of our program. There are other programs out there, and they're great, like Global Reporting Initiative or Stokes Certified is another one in the ski industry. So there's other programs out there, but we hope that this serves as a model, and these resorts truly are leaders in what they're doing on climate change. So one of the things I wanted to highlight too is that we have been working with CCL for many, many years, and it all started with an endorsement by NSAA of, first it was carbon fee and dividend, and then we endorsed the carbon pricing principles. And basically what we're doing in taking those actions is that we're trying to give a level of comfort to ski areas or state associations in the ski industry, and there's state associations in all of the major ski states, give them some comfort in endorsing a carbon tax bill. And HR 763 is, of course, the bill for this session of Congress. And so we hope to provide that leadership by saying, okay, NSAA is on board with this. It gives resorts and those state associations kind of an anchor where they say, okay, well, NSAA is doing this. I'm going to feel more comfortable doing this. It's just the way it is. You know, ski area operators are very busy with what they do every day, and they really leave it up to the association to lead on government affairs. So that work that we've done so far has resulted in 30 ski areas that have endorsed HR 763. And we also have 6 associations on board with it as well, which is really exciting to see. And this is a gradual thing. It's kind of like dominoes, and a couple associations do it, like the Pacific Northwest Ski Areas Association, California Ski Industry. We even had the Michigan ski areas, Montana ski areas. So we'll have a couple of states do it. Utah is on board, and then it gives the other state associations something to aim for, and then they bring it into their next board meeting and talk about, you know, these other associations in the industry are endorsing this bill, maybe we should too. So that's kind of how things have been working. And we had a really great moment or event at our national convention this year. We do it every May, and we had Matt Tucker and Bill Barron come to the meeting, and Mark Reynolds was there too at the front of the room doing a big session talking about putting a price on carbon. And Bill and Matt had the iPad set up outside the trade show, and as resorts walked by, we would lure them in, sometimes with the promise of drink tickets or something like that. And we would say, come talk to us about HR 763. And it's that person-to-person connection and relationships that, you know, really draw someone in to say, okay, it's probably time for me to consider this and to sign on to this bill. So that was awesome. I also just wanted to highlight that the ski industry is working with the outdoor industry, or OIA, and also Snow Sports Industries America, or SIA, on something together that we call the Outdoor Business Climate Partnership, or OBCP. And that represents, you know, that's an $887 billion industry represented in those 3 groups. And so we participated in a price on carbon fly-in in May with Series, and we got some resorts to come along too. I think our total group was 14 to 15 people. And I would say a lot of the things that we talk about, both at NSAA and with these other groups, we learned from CCL. We absolutely learned it from CCL. And that is, you know, the whole using respect in all of the meetings, working in a bipartisan fashion, working constructively, building bridges, all of those things that we hold nearly and dearly to our heart. CCL has those same kind of tenets and lives by those. And so I think from the beginning, it's just been so easy to partner with CCL and to connect and, you know, to see what we can do together as well. And so one of the things that came out of that was that we were in DC right around the time when the new Senate bipartisan climate caucus was forming. And we had some really great meetings, some of them in person with senators and some with their staff. But Senator Braun gave us a ton of time, even though, you know, we've got some ski areas in Indiana, but it's not like the ski industry is the #1 industry in Indiana, I can tell you that. And then Senator Coons from Delaware, also we met with his staff, and we just let it be known that we're here to be a resource and to help, and that this is an industry that has a strong voice on wanting climate solutions. And, you know, to come to us if you're going to have some kind of hearing or a roundtable with your new caucus, invite us. We'd love to come and share our story with you. And so that was a really exciting thing. And CCL helped us with those connections as well. So there is the photo from the meeting with Senator Braun, who's in the middle there. And then we have representatives from OIA, from SIA, NSAA. We also have Colorado Ski Country USA, and then Telluride Ski Area is also part of that group photo. And we just had the honor of being able to put an opinion piece, and this is the opinion piece that will appear in the publication for the Outdoor Retailer / Snow Show that's going to take place this month in Denver. Tens of thousands of attendees. It's a really big meeting. And we wrote an editorial basically on being optimistic for the future and the kind of work that we hope to do in the future as this partnership for the outdoors. And so anyway, thank you for putting that in there, Randy. That was hot off the press. I don't believe it's actually been published yet, but it will be in the first issue of the Snow Show Daily. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to share is our climate solutions trail map. And this is something that I feel kind of strongly about. When Mark Reynolds came to NSAA's convention, the name of the session that we did there was called Climate Change Solutions. We're gonna need them all. And we feel very strongly that we're not tied to only one solution. There's gonna have to be a lot of solutions because, you know, we're in a position now where we've kind of dug ourselves into a big hole. And so we tried to look at a lot of solutions at one time. I made this little chart for our members to make it understandable for them and easier for them to understand what all those solutions can be. And so I call it a trail map because in our industry, you know, you use that trail map, you say, where am I right now? And where do I want to go? And that's what you do with a trail map at a ski area. So we try to use that analogy here so that resorts could look at this and say, well, there's lots of options. And maybe I've done, you know, 3 in the kind of action column, or I've done a couple over in the advocacy column. But we wanted to drive home the point that we have to do both. We have to take action to reduce our own footprint voluntarily. That gives us credibility when we're lobbying in Washington. And then also on advocacy, there's all kinds of opportunities, and it doesn't have to be federal. It can be state or local, and it can be market-based, it can be regulatory. And I have to say today, when I was reading the news out of Washington that the Energy and Commerce Committee, you know, they have a climate bill, and it focuses a lot on a clean energy standard. And it doesn't, you know, it has some market-based things in it in terms of the ability for a power company to buy credits in the market, if they're not, meeting the kind of requirements. But I just felt like I was disappointed that price on carbon wasn't in that bill, because I feel like it really is a no-brainer and it needs to be part of this conversation. But I was just happy to kind of say, okay, there's going to be all kinds of solutions and they might be regulatory, and that's okay too. We're very supportive of a broad range of solutions. So anyway, this is a chart that our industry has been using to kind of, gauge what have you done and what more can you do. And we did list Citizens Climate Lobby in there in terms of, joining coalitions and amplifying the voice in that far right corner or column, sorry. Okay, so one thing I just wanted to quickly touch on is we have a whole new sustainability and climate program that we're launching. We're starting next week at Squaw Valley, California at our winter meeting. And the kind of centerpiece of this new program is a series of badges on sustainability that resorts can earn. And we have climate action and climate advocacy as the double black diamond in the middle, because to us, that's really the most important of all these badges. So I just want to show you a little preview of what's coming. And then resorts that are, if they're in our climate challenge, they automatically get the double black diamond badge. If they're not in our climate challenge, they certainly can earn these badges just by meeting the criteria that we post. And it'll all be transparent. And so we're super excited about it because it's something that I think will draw in more resorts. We have this tendency to have the leaders and we're always kind of talking to the same people. This program that we're doing is going to reach way beyond the 40 resorts that are doing the climate challenge. So we're pretty excited about that. And then my final slide, and this is really, I think, the most important thing in terms of how do we get to a point where we can encourage big operators in an industry to get on board with supporting HR 763. How do you get, your member companies, if you're an association, to support a price on carbon? And I think it's important to understand the ski industry a little bit in order to kind of unpack how we got where we are and where we think we're going in the future. So one of the things that I often get as a question from our members who say, okay, I'm being asked to endorse a price on carbon, but I'm concerned that my costs are going to go up. And a lot of resorts, if they're not the Vails and the Aspens, they have a pretty thin profit margin. And they're saying, I don't want my costs to go up more. So if I support a carbon tax, my costs are going to go up, and it's, that can't be a good thing. And so my answer to them is that your costs are already increasing because of climate change. And so it's pretty easy to see that with a ski area. If you are having to make more snow, secure more water rights, put in more water facilities to transport water to your resort, you're using more energy to make snow, you're adding year-round uses at a ski area, mountain bike parks and canopy, zip line tours, rope courses, all of those things. You're trying to even out your revenues a little over the season because things have become so unpredictable. And then a real whopper for California ski areas is the cost of insurance. And so we have ski areas in California whose premiums have quintupled this year because of wildfire risk. And that's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse until we have broad scale solutions for climate change. So when you look at all of those costs going up, I will look at a ski area and say, why not spread the cost of climate change over the entire economy, over the entire market, across all businesses, instead of having an industry like the ski industry shoulder the burden more than others? And so I think that really resonates with our members. And so one of the things about the ski industry is that we have a high burden to contribution ratio. And I know that's kind of a mouthful, but we are burdened by climate change a lot more than we contribute to it. And so again, we're going to end up with our costs going up way higher as a result of climate change, whether it's energy or water or, having to diversify into summer uses or pay higher premiums for insurance. And at the same time, we're not contributing a lot to climate change. And I wanted to just take this moment to say, contrary to what you might see in the media, they like to say that ski areas are energy hogs and that snowmaking in particular is this huge energy suck at a ski area. Snowmaking is actually only 10 to 20% of a ski area's energy use. And I say that based on data that we have, not on every resort, but we do have data on quite a few of them, especially through our climate challenge. And then also, in terms of ski areas and their role in a community, they typically account for 10% of their community's emissions. And we've looked at a couple of key ski area communities in looking at that data. And so we're actually not big energy hogs. So I just like to clarify that because, we do use energy, but we're not huge contributors to climate change. But at the same time, we have so much to lose because we ultimately rely on the environment for this experience that we're providing to our guests. And so any industries like that have that same kind of set of factors where you're relying on the environment and you're burdened by climate change a lot more than you're causing, I think those are the kind of industries that should be easy to line up in terms of support for a carbon tax. So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that's just something, that's kind of how I see it. And I wanted to be sure to get that point across. So the only other thing that I wanted to bring up before going to Q&As is that we do have an exciting announcement, and I've spoken to Harold Hedelman about this. NSAA is going to make a contribution of $10,000 towards CCL, BCL. I'm gonna put a slash in there because I think that we work so closely with BCL, and we absolutely support all of the great work that CCL has done over the years. And we're going to make that $10,000 contribution from we're going to change a practice at NSAA that has to do with sustainability that's going to result in the ability for us to make that contribution. So to make a really long story short, we are going to nix the bags that we used to give out at our conventions to, about 1,000 people. And we would have a bag and there'd be all these things in the bag, like the highlighters, and we would even have Bluetooth speakers in there and water bottles and, all of these little things. They'd all be shipped to our convention site, and they're all wrapped in plastic and arriving in all this cardboard. And then we would have to have this team of people putting them all together. At the end of the day, we would have this giant mound of trash that was embarrassing, honestly. So we decided, instead of giving out those bags, we're going to take the money and we're going to give it to Citizens Climate Lobby, business climate leaders, in support of the great work that all of you do. So I just wanted to share that. It's something really new. We haven't done it yet, but we're getting ready to do it, and we're super excited about it. So there you have it. So I'm ready for any questions or discussion.
Great. Thanks, Geraldine. Twofold, threefold, fourfold of course, for the donation and all of your support and advice along the way, and for a fantastic presentation in terms of the work that you're doing. I really like this whole idea of spreading of telling people and getting them lined up around, wouldn't it be better to spread the costs across the whole economy? And you mentioned trying to find organizations in industries that kind of have that similar profile. Are there any, you talk about the work that you do with other outdoor industries. Is there any kind of non-outdoor kind of cross-fertilization or industries and industry associations that you are working with, that you see that correlation with?
Well, I wouldn't say that they might be industries that we're working with, But I do wonder from time to time, like, hey, I wonder if that industry has some of the same issues that we have. And I think that the wine industry is, you guys are more familiar with it than I am, but I was in Napa this past October, and just kind of looking at it from a climate change impacts perspective, and clearly relying on the environment, the weather, just like we do, and also probably costs go up, revenues might come down, and ultimately the wine industry is not contributing to climate change in a big way. You're just impacted by it a lot. And so I don't know, I just throw that out there as an example, and I'm sure there a lot of you California people are experts in that, and BCL already works with the wine industry. So I think about industries like that, and there's got to be more out there that are similar, that are not necessarily in the recreation realm, but do have that connection to the environment.
That's great. I appreciate that. So a couple of questions and kind of comments as well. The first one I think is more just clarification, or thanks for all your work and engaging people to all possible solutions, and for your voice on the need for carbon pricing as a silver buckshot to catalyze other changes. As for the energy and commerce proposals yesterday, it's my understanding that this proposal does not include carbon pricing because energy and commerce doesn't have the jurisdiction over to propose carbon pricing. Rather, it would be Ways and Means. So that's your understanding as well?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really important point. And again, there can be other bills out there. So the jurisdictional issue is definitely well covered in the press on that. So I think it's a good explanation.
Great. And we have one of our liaisons from New York is on with us, and wondering about resorts and associations that you're working with on this in the Northeast. It's specifically around Adirondack Park and ski resorts in New York at all Winter Olympic villages.
Yeah, so I do engage with those New York ski areas and with their state association as well. I think they're doing more and more work on climate. And last January, when we announced the creation of the Outdoor Business Climate Partnership, New York was one of the states that signed on to a statement of support for the outdoor industry coming together to work on climate. And so the State Ski Association of New York was one of the signatories to that. I'll call it a press release, a kind of statement of support. And I thought that was awesome because, again, this is a domino effect. And so the more states that we pull in, the more the other ones, and they all talk to each other in our industry. The state association folks have conversations together. We host meetings for them so they can all get together at our convention. So they're stepping it up for sure in New York, and it's great.
Great, thanks for that. So how many people ski and use the resorts? I mean, millions.
Yeah, 10 million.
10 million. So the customer base, the NRA is how many? A couple million people, and they have an incredible amount of influence. So how do you and how do we and how are you working with the resorts to get the customers, those outdoor aficionados, to really step up and advocate?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. NSAA, we are a trade organization, and we're the resort part of the industry. And then Snow Sports Industries America is the apparel and equipment side of the industry. So we're kind of sister organizations, but we're not together. We used to be, and then we split apart. So I would say we don't have individuals as members of NSAA. So it kind of sets us apart from like the International Mountain Biking Association, IMBA. They have individual members. We are a trade organization. And so That's not to say that we don't have consumer-facing messaging. However, when it comes to safety and the environment on those two topics, we do tend to, engage in broader campaigns. And so I think it's something, a couple of things. Protect Our Winters, which is a great organization. It's based here in Colorado. They are really good at engaging guests and young people and using social media, getting out the vote and all of that. So I applaud their work in this area. And NSAA, we do social media as well, but again, we're not so much of a consumer-facing organization. And I've heard some analogies of, why can't the ski industry be more like the NRA? I don't love the analogy, to be honest with you, for a number of reasons. And I know that the NRA, I looked up what they spend in Washington. I don't know, 93 million, something like that. We're not quite in that ballpark, not even close. And so I feel like the NRA has the luxury of being a one-issue kind of organization, whereas the ski industry, climate is certainly a huge issue for us, but we are an operation that has a really complex regulatory environment. And so our Washington presence, we have to keep many balls in the air at one time, not just one. And so I feel like, it's more complicated than to just say, why can't you be like the NRA? Because, I've definitely seen that. I saw in a recent article somewhere that I saw published as well. So, I think we're very different from the NRA. And the NRA is in a lot of hot water too right now. So I don't know if I like the analogy.
Yeah, I agree. It's not so much analogy, but just wanting, rabid climate activists really, really working, people really taking their love of the outdoors and of skiing and boarding and making sure that their members of Congress know that they're really concerned and want them to act on climate.
It might be that at some point, I would just suggest that at some point, if the membership wants to step up on their messaging to the customers that participate at activities at the ski areas, that's something that the association might help with in terms of providing template messaging on climate and policy.
Yes, and in fact, our new program that we're launching this month, and we're calling it Sustainable Slopes 2020, one of the critical elements in there is the skier's sustainability code. And the first bullet is raise your voice and, connect with policymakers on climate change and, of course, vote. So we put that first in this new code for skiers and snowboarders. So that will be coming out this month. And we'll do artwork on it. So all of the resorts will have this artwork and be able to use that for messaging and engaging with their customers.
Oh, that's really significant.
Yeah.
Good.
A couple more questions. Have you or any of the resorts that have done an analysis of actually the impact carbon pricing would have on them, kind of positive or negative or neutral?
We haven't done that analysis. It's really, obviously going to vary from state to state with the costs of energy and deregulation and all of those different factors. And we haven't done that analysis, but I can tell you that it doesn't take an analysis to show us that we need to solve climate change. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things that's just so right in your face in the ski industry. So we, I would love to see if someone did that, but I would say, that I think even if the analysis were, your costs will increase slightly, I think resorts would still be saying, well, our other costs are already increasing. So, let's take this on and support it.
So can I just interrupt? I just wanted to say that I did do an analysis for Squaw Valley's sustainability guy, Michael, and I didn't actually get feedback from him on how he felt about it, except that shortly thereafter they endorsed the Energy Innovation Act. So it was a simple spreadsheet analysis, and I would be happy to do that for any resort that wanted it. So Geraldine, if any resort GMs say, I'd love to know what the impact on my operations is going to be, just say, well, there's a guy at CCL that'd be happy to run some numbers for you.
All right. Can I really say that?
You really can.
All right.
Great. He's happy to do it in person too. So two things, just to finish. Somebody asked about the press release. I think was speaking about the New York, where the New York Ski Association get involved. Is that on your website, or where would we find that?
Yeah. So our website is NSAA.org, and if you click on environment at the top, you'll then see an option to the right that says Outdoor Business Climate Partnership, and it's on that page.
Right. And the kind of last question, if we can just kind of wrap things up, would be any kind of last thoughts you have on how we can effectively engage and work with trade associations? What are the kind of the key pieces?
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job, and part of that is being there, nudging, sending messages in a way where, and of course I have a lot going on this, on my radar, but then if I'm reminded of something or a big development on, climate change solutions of some sort, I love getting that kind of information, and Harold is really good about giving those kind of updates and piquing my curiosity about, new things that are going on, because then I can be a good resource too to my members. And so I think, that stream of information is really helpful. And when I was invited to be part of Business Climate Leaders, to be, advisory board, I think that stuff's awesome, because then you feel like you're really connected and you're part of it, and you make it more of a priority when you are, included and pulled in that way. So I think all of those things are good examples of what to do. Also, the availability to come speak at a meeting. Mark Reynolds has spoken twice at our conventions, and he really knocks it out of the park with, the message of CCL on the carbon tax bill. So I think just being available as a team to go out there, and Matt and Bill coming to our national convention as well, I think that that presence is really, really important to connecting with industry.
Great. Thank you, Geraldine.
Yeah, Randy,
go ahead, Harold.
I have just one quickie question.
Yeah.
Probably a yes or a no for Geraldine. OIA and SIA are part of the coalition that you've built for Action on Climate. Are they considering, or have they, and I apologize if I should know, but I don't, have they considered endorsing the bill or carbon pricing?
Well, I've definitely asked them, and others have asked them as well. And I think where they have hesitation is the provision in the bill that talks about carbon intensive products. And it's not terribly fleshed out in the bill. It says to be addressed in regulations, So I think that they have discomfort with saying, okay, we'll be part of this, even though we don't know if our products, like skis and ski poles and all of those things, if they're going to be carbon intensive products, you bet that those companies are going to say, wait, why are we doing this to ourselves? So that is the crux of their hesitation. That's why they hesitate. However, they did participate in the series Price on Carbon fly-in. So it's like there's some support, but I think the language in the bill gave them pause.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. That gives us something that we can really follow up on, because carbon intensive is not going to make a big difference to skis. That's really good news. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's
well, and
definitely...
there's a lot of carbon. There's a lot of carbon in outdoor products, if you think about it, like tent poles and bikes and Carbon is a really popular, expensive part of your components.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Geraldine. Can't thank you enough for being here with us and for just all the great work that you're doing and support of us. So thank you very much. So you're welcome. You're welcome to stay on and join us, or you're welcome to go relax if you like. So, what was that, Steve? Did you have a comment?
I said, and once again for the donation. So it's just the work you're doing and the partnership has just been fantastic. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and then want to say to those of you on the line, CCLers, BCLers, there are some questions that you have. If you didn't get them addressed, you can always talk with Matt Tucker and Bill Barron, who head up the outdoor industry action team within CCL. And if you're not members of that, go ahead and join. So with that, let me turn it over to Harold and Steve to kind of talk about BCL business.
Great. Well, we want to just run through really quickly some of the key accomplishments in 2019. We'll start, and we'll kind of tag team here. We might even bring in Randy for some of these as well. So start with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group endorsement. They endorsed HR 763 in principle, and that's gotten a lot of play, both with their membership, but also they advocated for it in a trip to Washington, D.C., and CCL has really picked it up and given quite a bit of publicity to that. So that's been great. And we're continuing to work with Silicon Valley Leadership Group, their members. This was an endorsement from the overall trade association, not from individual members. We're continuing to work to get endorsements from the large tech companies that belong to that. So, Randy, you want to talk about the Brewers and wine?
Yeah, I was just thinking that we just launched, it seems like we've been doing it for ages, but we actually just launched both those, the Brewers Declaration Initiative and the Winery Declaration Initiative in 2019. So back the end of January. So within the year, we now, as we close the year out, 185 brewers from across the country, 20 plus, probably about 25 different states, and 19 wineries have now supported EICDA. So excited about that, and we'll carry that on this year as well.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I can just say a little bit, and then anybody from BCL can chime in. But we did get a very interesting endorsement from the, believe it or not, Algal Biomass Association, basically a leader in the group of companies that are trying to use carbon to make food, extracted carbon. And we had the SynBio Beta organization endorse EICDA, which is they're one of the leading organizations in that synthetic biology sector. We were present also at the Advanced Biofuels Association, and there had Mark Reynolds actually came out and did a breakout on the benefits of a price on carbon and our bill for that industry. So we've had a lot of trade group engagements and some endorsements in that area.
And I would just really add that we've really found that working with, aiming to get endorsements and working with trade associations, we found is really the most effective way to go, rather than and makes a much broader impact than just individual companies. So, in addition to NSAA and Silicon Valley Leadership Group and the ones Harold mentioned, we've also partnered with are presenting at the American Meteorological Society next week. We've developed a relationship with the Green Sports Alliance, with the real estate trade group. So that's something that we've really continued to focus on. And anybody that wants to join BCL and has got interests or connections to trade groups, that would be, that'd be a great area to work with. So we have. I don't think Bruce is on, right, to talk about. Randy, do you want to talk about Go Teams? Or
just briefly to say, Bruce Hagen, one of our dear co-founders of BCL, was super active last year in rolling out the Go Teams, the grass tap outreach teams in the kind of key lock-in states. Now you lock-in states with Utah, Louisiana, Ohio, Colorado, Kentucky. Iowa. Thank you. I was going to say Indiana. Iowa and North Carolina. So it's still a work in progress for sure. And Daryl Benatar is kind of picking up the baton, but we at least had a key kind of starting and getting some teams going in those key states and key districts.
The importance of the lock-in states is that they're states whose senators are on committees of jurisdiction for the bill. That's why CCL headquarters has asked BCL to do some focusing on members of Congress in those states and getting businesses in those states to advocate to those important senators.
And we continue to add new sector teams. We added the automotive sector team, real estate, and a sports sector team this year. And we've just decided as part of our work in 2020 that we're really going to work with those sector teams to try to put additional focus on the ULOC-in states as well, to try to increase their impact where it can be felt the most in terms of the bill.
In terms of high-profile speaking, really one of the most high-profile things we've done since we did the carbon pricing event in San Francisco last year is this next week in Boston at the 100th Centennial Conference of the American Meteorological Society, and we were able to put together a full day on climate policy. It's a symposium on climate policy. So we'll have a couple hundred members attending 4 different panels and 2 plenary speakers talking about climate policy. And of course, we'll be talking about carbon pricing, but other solutions as well. It's all in a climate restoration framework. That's the other thing that's interesting about that symposium.
Yeah, Harold spoke at the Realtors Conference as well this year. Steve spoke at the Green Sports Alliance meeting in Philadelphia. There were a few others in there as well.
Yeah.
We've kind of, this all hands meeting kind of tried to do them quite regularly now with speakers. So that kind of picked up over the last year, as well as Sarah, Steph, and the marketing team in terms of getting out more and more information through our newsletters and resources. And here, I guess I'll just kind of jump ahead to the developing and expanding our website, both the external facing website of businessclimateleaders.org, but also our resource website, which we developed this year for all CCLers and BCLers to get the latest and greatest, from presentation material to the news on corporate advocacy. Also, we're active in doing training workshops, role play workshops, hands-on at the national as well as regional conferences. Developed 2 videos. You want to talk about that, Harold?
Sure. So one of the things that came up when we were doing the event at the Gap last year was the discussion with what is that group that Greg is with?
That what?
The business-focused carbon pricing proposal that's so similar to ours with George Schultz on their board.
Climate Leadership Council.
Climate Leadership Council.
Yeah. So we were talking with them at the forum that we did last year at the Gap, and what came out of it is that they're feeling that when bills start to really get traction, there'll be some blowback from the business sector about how it's going to hurt their businesses. And we talked about producing some businesses actually doing some media pieces to counter that, basically to say, hey, I'm a business and I think a carbon tax is really good. So we've produced a couple of those. One is in the brewery sector and the other is in the commercial real estate sector.
Yeah, and the hope is that we will continue to kind of expand on that and looking for distribution and partners to work with us on that kind of going forward. And then finally here, we're over 400 BCL members, so continuing to grow and get more representation from within CCL.
Great.
You gentlemen want to kind of just talk about what we're doing and what we're working toward now, briefly?
Sure. Of course, there's carrying on with what's been working. That means we did some assessment, and we're in the process of doing assessment of what's really been working. The declarations like the brewery and agriculture declarations, we're going to do more of those and keep them growing. They seem to be very effective in helping chapters get in touch with businesses in their areas. We're also going to be devoting a little more focus to those lock-in states where we think that's really important, and it'll help us focus. And one of the ideas that we're going to be working on is bringing in members outside of states that are important, outside of the lock-in states, but getting members from places like Silicon Valley and Marin County, where we have really great blue members of Congress and actually not a lot of convincing left to do. And so we're going to ask members in CCL members in those places to work with us on businesses in the lock-in states. And that's the plan. We haven't implemented anything yet, but it is part of the 2020 plan.
And as I mentioned, we'll continue to put a great deal of focus on trade associations because we think that they're big levers in terms of expanding our influence. And continue to grow BCL. So we'll be looking for new members, and the speaking engagements and regional and national conferences are great ways for us to continue to expand our membership.
One of the things that we're working on in terms of a document that will be helpful, we think, to our members, BCL members, is that there's a business case for carbon pricing to be made that's specific for businesses. I mean, you can have a business case for carbon pricing for a ski area just based on the threats to the ski areas, but in general, there's a business case for carbon pricing that can be made, and we're working on finishing one of those. And the other piece we're working on is how to do advocacy for businesses, what kind of advocacy they can do. Randy's been working really hard on that, so we're looking forward to having that for everybody. And the other thing I think we're going to be emphasizing more to our advocates is to make sure that members of the business community know that what we really want from them, more than an endorsement, is for them to communicate with their member of Congress and make sure the member of Congress hears that they support carbon pricing, they support our bill if they can go that far, and they really emphasize how important it is to take action on climate. Oh, Randy, you're muted.
I've been just talking to myself here. So thank you, Harold. Just going to finish up by just kind of walking through the resources within BCL, if anybody is not familiar with them. Our outward external website, businessclimateleaders.org, which is fantastic, and it's getting better. We're going to keep adding to that. If you're within CCL on community, please join our action team at the BCL Action Team. And then here, this URL, I need to get a little more user-friendly URL, but this is our BCL resources site, which has presentations and articles and different reports and information for climate advocacy. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Please just go ahead and speak away. I see G, I'm not sure who that is, but had a question about member. Can you please tell us where the member analysis resource is? I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, hi. I was the one that, my name is Gabriel, by the way.
Hey, Gabriel.
Just joined in December, and yeah, I was the one that asked if Geraldine had any analysis on her carbon pricing implementation, and a gentleman or another member jumped in and said he had done so. I wanted to get his name and try to be able to contact him.
Great. That's Matt Tucker, Tucker. Matt, are you here? Do you want to share your email in the chat box?
Yeah, Matt. And we can also see if we can find that somewhere and stick it in there, and we'll get it to you, Gabriel. Hey, Randy, I want to make sure we save this chat dialogue because there's so many great compliments for Geraldine in it, and I want to make sure she sees it before it disappears.
Yeah, it should automatically come when I stop the recording, so thank you.
All right. I'll see if I can find Matt Tucker's info.
Somebody, Dale asked a question about HVAC, any outreach that we've done with A-Share. Mark, did you jump in on that? Just want to connect the two of you guys. Mark Mesner.
Yes, I did. Yeah, Randy, okay. I did. Yeah.
Okay.
We're chatting here privately on the site.
Okay, fantastic. Any other questions anybody has?
Yeah, I put a question earlier. This is Gabriel again. Would you by chance have a reference or a study available showing the industries most affected by climate change and broken down by region or geography? I'm in the Florida section, and I want to be able to target those industries.
Take a look at Risky Business
Okay.
on the web. They did regional and national reports. I'm not sure if Florida was in one of their regional reports, but certainly in the national. That's a good place to start.
That's
Thank you.
Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Bloomberg, George Schultz,
Yeah.
a number of amazing folks were on that Risky Business. They're not doing anything new, but the stuff is still up there. I put Matt Tucker's email in there, Gabriel. He's in the chat window now.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. And if anybody else, to Harold's point, if anybody has any thank yous for Geraldine, I'm not sure she's still on the call or not, but you can put them in the chat and we'll get those off to her. She was really fantastic having her.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless anybody else has a question, we'll wrap things up. You can always reach us on community, or if you go to businessclimateleaders.org, there's a way to contact us. Those emails will get to Steve, Harold, and I, and we can answer any questions that you have, or let us know what resources you need to make yourself more effective. And we have lots of things and lots of activities we would love some help on within BCL. So if you have the time and interest, we can certainly find a place to engage you. So thank you. But thank you, everybody.
Good questions, Gabriel.
Yep.
Thanks,
All right.
Mark.
Well,
Thanks, Randy.
thank you, everybody. Much appreciated to Geraldine and everybody, all of you, for showing up and asking some great questions. So thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Harold.
Great job, Randy.